Okay. So I have a similar experience, but mine went on for much longer. My name is Maggie Eaves, and I'm here to share my grandson Camden's experience. Camden is 22 years old. He is autistic, IDD, has epilepsy. He was diagnosed at the age of 8. He has been a client of Lakes Regional MHMR since 2022. His caseworker being helpful, but she doesn't have any resources to provide us. Mental health clinic just changes meds and sends him back home. Camden also has developed anxiety and PTSD due to the adverse experiences he has had to endure in his short lifetime and being incarcerated. Camden was living with me in rural Hopkins County and going to high school where he had an adverse incident which was not handled as outlined in his IEP. It led to Camden refusing to go to school because he felt he was being criminalized. Camden began to have meltdowns and engage in self-harm. There is no crisis respite or crisis stabilization unit in or around our county. My only option when he became unstable was to the sheriff's department and EMTs. We went through countless incidents of short-term hospitalization and mental health clinics where they would all they would do is change his medication and send him home. Eventually, due to repeated contact with law enforcement, he was arrested on November the 6th of 2024. We had just received the long-term waiver and had applied for state-supported living center just a month prior to his incarceration. In jail, most jailers didn't believe he had IDD due to his behavior. They called it behavioral issues. He was kept in a solitary cell for 8 months, where he stopped eating and lost over 40 pounds and had a lot of health problems. In July, the judge asked us to bring him home because they were afraid of his health. But he was arrested about a month and a half into that because he could not function after being incarcerated. This time they kept, then he was rearrested after I had him here for a month and a half. This time they put him in general population. Well, you can imagine what that turned into. He kept having epileptic seizures, and when the jail provided no care for it, they thought he was a spoiled brat or he was faking it just to get his way. They called them temper tantrums. So he received absolutely no care for that. All of this is causing him even more anxiety. And now the jail is calling it panic attacks. He loses control, goes to the floor, and he does not remember what happened. One time they gave him smelling salts, which is a no-no for seizures, for epilepsy. That's when we found out that he had a lot of new health problems that were caused from his incarceration. He now has mild encephalopathy, epileptogenicity, and his heart has a right branch bundle block. These were all discovered in June of 2025 when he had an epileptic seizure and went to the hospital. The hospital ran a lot of tests. A lot of those tests came back abnormal. They never told me about it. I actually discovered it when I realized Camden had a patient portal from that hospital and found all of those tests. So I started asking for help. The jail has now made him an appointment with a cardiologist on January 21. This part was discovered in June, but in January we're getting this, finally getting this cardiology appointment. But I can't get an appointment for a neurologist for him. That's just a no-no. In the past 15 months, I have knocked on every possible door in my county and all across the state. I've called, emailed, and wrote to countless advocacy groups, the jail commission, the behavioral health advisory panel, state representatives, senators, providers, anyone and everyone I could find, and learned a lot. What I discovered was not just a shocking lack of resources beyond our rural county, but also a complete lack of plans or solutions to address this crisis of criminalization of young people with IDD. I learned from this committee's work that the largest number of transfers to state-supported living centers take place from county jails. I guess I shouldn't be surprised since we have no crisis response, no crisis respite, excruciating long waits for dayhab, no therapist specializing in autism with people who have IDD. I am sure this is true of much of rural Texas where sheriff departments are the only option. This makes sense to me. This makes no sense to me. How can we as a society be okay with locking up people like Mike Camden, whose IQ is less than 67? In my opinion, this is the most important committee in Texas for people with IDD, but that is not reflected at all in your last two reports to the legislature. I don't see any sense of urgency in this committee's work to come up on solutions to get people with IDD out of jails. I urge this committee to focus on three things. 1, deflection from jails, not diversion, but deflection. 2, creating robust protocols for appropriate care if people with IDD are incarcerated. 3, urging the legislature to create something meaningful in the community for our IDD youth who have nothing between SSLCs and jails and the streets. Please treat this with urgency. Please make meaningful and people-centered recommendations to our lawmakers. I beg of you. Thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you, Ms. Eaves. We appreciate your comments.